Generally, when you see a problem with a brand, the root of that problem probably goes back 20 years before you recognize there was a problem. In the case of Oldsmobile, it may have gone away in the 90s, but it was in the 70s where its issues, the root of their problem began. It was a fabulous brand. It was the most respected brand in the auto industry, Oldsmobile was. And the Rocket V8 was at the core of that brand, the almighty Rocket V8. Mm-hmm. And they had great styling to go along with it. And in the mid to late 70s, someone thought that, there's another corporate V8, the exact same dimensions, the same capabilities, but far more affordable, that we could substitute in these cars and we would be more profitable. Wow. And they did not tell the customer. And there were other powertrain decisions around diesels that were a problem. And, and the customers, didn't appreciate what they were doing. And there were needs for more fuel efficient cars for the brand. And it was difficult to do that on a budget. And they did some small cars that did not live up to the Oldsmobile promise. And that would have been the late 70s, early 80s. And it set Oldsmobile on a course that they could not correct. Pontiac was another incredible brand. You look at the Pontiac brand, and I'd say the heyday, in the 60s, incredible cars, and more European than other brands. And you look at a Pontiac versus a Chevrolet, the grills and the detailing that went into a grill versus the stamping that was a Chevrolet grill. And that I use that as an example, but you go throughout the vehicle and it's very much the same, and bucket seats and consoles and just wonderful things. And then they really started losing their way, and cars that were very serious became much more fad than serious brand building designs, and really hurt those brands. And so I understand why they went away. It's a shame that they went away. And if they were true to themselves, there was definitely a place for them. Now, Oldsmobile should not have competed with Buick as much as they did. There's no need for GM to have, for Oldsmobile's chief competitor to be another GM brand. And that's a problem as well. But I think if you manage the portfolio and really separate them properly, it could, some of it could work with it as long as there wasn't redundancy.
What are the lessons learned from the Saturn experiment?
I think the Saturn experience was a great learning experience in many ways, manufacturing and marketing. Again, they lost away the very first generation of their vehicles. If you really compare them to other vehicles at the time, they were, from a design perspective, they were very strong. They had a very strong character, very distinctive, very well done designs. But once they got to their next generation of product, they were so focused on the experience, and the design was not nearly as important. I think they created a problem by de-emphasizing the importance of design.
Good point. What about the demise of Saab and now Holden? Your thoughts on those two brands?
Yeah, in every case, it was very different reasons. The Saab brand was not profitable, and very rarely did it make money over the years that General Motors owned it. And ironically, it was right when it went away that it had the strongest portfolio it had in years, and strong concept vehicles and production vehicles and other production vehicles on their way, when, they folded up their tents. In the case of Holden, in Australia, Ford and Holden owned that market. They did for decades. And they would have, nice, cool little dealerships to support them. And they didn't, change was not rapid. All of a sudden, Japanese brands came in, particularly, I think of Toyota, with these wonderful dealerships and a wide variety of products that they could pull from their portfolio, and not just, an Australian portfolio, but from their global portfolio, and wonderful dealership experience compared to what you could get from a Ford or Holden dealership. I think General Motors in Australia would have been, or would be better off if one of its global brands was there and not a dedicated Australian brand. The country isn't that large. Great country, incredible people, and a spirit there that is unbelievable. And the design team there is very creative. And, when we stopped really designing a lot for Holden, that design team was still very valuable because it was so creative, and it supported work for many of our other brands, for Buick, for Cadillac. A lot of the work that was done by those brands actually came out of the Holden studio.
As I recall, they were really on the edge for using the digital tools, more so even than some of the other staffs.
Yeah, they had to, but they were, they seemed to be able to operate without a lot of influence, and, a lot of creativity came out
that
of
autonomy of being a continent away across the ocean helped.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the revival of the Hummer brand?
Well, I'm excited about it. There's been talk about it for quite a while, even before I left. I've been gone for almost 4 years, and there was some talk about it, not serious plans that I knew of. I'm excited about it. I like Hummer. I'm really intrigued and wondering what they will actually do with the brand, and we'll see what happens. But for me, the glass is more than half full when it comes to Hummer.
Aesthetically, what would your advice be to the Hummer team?
I think you can build on the known aesthetic of Hummer. It's interesting when you look at a Hummer today, they really haven't aged at all. No. And it's an aesthetic. It's to do something that bold that hasn't aged, that's pretty incredible. I think you can build on it, but be influenced by the technologies that are going to be in that vehicle, at least what I hear that will be in it. And those technologies will lead you to some aesthetic choices that I think will be very fresh, hopefully not too trendy, because what's cool about Hummer is that they don't get dated quickly, and which is good for a brand. You don't have to refresh it as often. So We'll see. It remains to be seen.